Hi guys, it's Gilly here, just bringing you a little skirt notelet card. And I say skirt because it has a rather pretty little pleated front, which looks a little bit like a tennis skirt or something like that, that has these little sharp pleats. Isn't it pretty? And it shows the back of the card. So this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to make it in just a different colour way from the Lily Pad Lake Designer Series paper, which is rather pretty here. So this is what you're going to need. You're going to need a shaded spruce stamping pad, ink pad, and a happy birthday, because I've decided to put happy birthday as my text on this one. And I've used shaded spruce because I've chosen this particular piece from the Lily Pad Lake, which is a slightly different colour to the one I used here, which was the Bermuda Bay background. Okay, and this is what we're going to need. Here's your measurements. You're going to need the skirt part, which originally is cut by 2.5 inches by 11.5 in length. And then we're going to score it all over the place, and I'm going to do that in front of you, so we'll talk our way through the score marks. And then you're also going to need 2 cuffs. You're going to need one that's 5.5 long by 1 inch, and that's the same paper. I've just turned it over because we're going to use the reverse side. And then you're going to need another piece from the same paper, and this is also 5.5 long by 1/4 inch wide. So there's your 2 cuffs, and these will be slightly too long. If I bring back that original, what they will be is slightly too long, but we do that so that when we stick them down we can then do a nice neat trim and everything will be all parallel and cut together. So they are going to be slightly too long. Okay, and you will then need a base card, and I have used a note card. There we go. And I've used a 7 inch by 5 inch piece of card, that way. I've scored it in half and folded it so that we end up with a 3.5 by 5 inch note card, and that fits nicely in our notelet envelopes. Okay, so I'm going to put the card away for now, and we will also need a little piece of baker's twine and some rather pretty little glitter enamel embellishments, and I'm going to choose this little pink one here. Okay, but we'll put those to one side just for now, and we'll get the pleat made first. So let's get everything out of the way except for the pleat piece, and this was the piece that was 2.5 inches by 11.5. So I'm going to leave this in place. Sorry, I'm going to leave it for you because we're going to talk through the scoring, and I'm going to use my scoreboard for this just because it's easier, and I have one and I love it. You could use your scoring blade on your trimmer, but I find when you're doing a lot of scoring it's much easier to use a scoreboard, and I love having a scoreboard to do boxes and things like that, gift wraps. So here we go, we're going to score at 2.5. Okay, we're going to then score 1/4 inch in, which is at 3. So we've done 2.5, 3. Now we're going to jump an inch to 4, and we're going on, did I say 1/4? I should have said 1/2. So we go 2.5, 1/2 inch along makes you go to 3, then from 3 an inch to 4, 1/2 inch to 4.5, another inch to 5.5. So we're doing 1/2 inch and an inch, 1/2 inch and an inch, 1/2 inch and an inch, 1/2 inch. And we've cut this to 11.5, and again, a little bit like the other, you will end up with a tiny little piece left over, and that we might trim up later on. So there's your scored piece of paper ready for the pleat. And now I'm going to bring back my trimmer, And I'm now going to cut, and this is quite hard for you to see unfortunately on the film, but where the first of the pleats is going to come, there you can see the score marks. I can see them more clearly than you can, I expect, but you can see the score marks. So we're going to go from the first of the score marks. We have our 2.5 inch space. We have the first of the score marks, and we're going to trim a line diagonally across here to roughly 1/2 inch at the end. Okay, let's put that underneath. And the only thing that's really important is that we get this bang on this corner, because then we'll get a nice neat line. Okay, so I'm going from this end here. I'm trying to get this all in for you to see. So from this point here is where we're going to start, because that's the first of the pleats, the farthest end, and then we're going to take it up to there. So we'll put that down, and let's take that slice. Okay, and there it goes. That goes out of the way. We can perhaps use it for something else, but we're certainly not going to use it in this. Okay, and now let's make those pleats up. So we're going to fold it backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and we're just pleating it backwards and forwards. And you know I said there'd be a little left over? Well, that's where it is. Okay, so let's just... Now, sometimes if you haven't quite got it square on, which I haven't quite here, it may be worth just going in and re-trimming that first pleat, just to make it nice and crisp. Okay, did you see what I did? I just trimmed that little piece off. So there is our pleat. Okay, and we've now got to make that stick down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little drop of glue on each of the pleats from the top. I am, if I could get this to run. Oh. Just give me 1 second whilst I get it to run. It doesn't seem to want to for me. Let's see if I've got a pin or something that I can poke it with. Here we go. Sometimes you'll find if you leave your glues out, as like I do sometimes on the desk, I've actually had mine out pretty much all day today, and I really should replace the top. If I replace the top each time, then the oxygen doesn't get in, and therefore it stays nice and running. But if, like me, you leave the top off, just a little piece of a paper clip, paper clip that I've just opened up, just gives it a little poke, and it breaks the sort of little seal that's formed inside. Okay, just a little tip for you. So we're looking at the straight edge here, not the diagonal line. We're looking at the straight edge, and we're putting a little bit of glue on the inside of each of the pleats. Okay, I'll show you this when I've got them done, so that you can be sure you're in the right place. So there's our straight top, and there's our diagonal line, and it's on the insides of each of the pleats, so that as we close it up, that will stick the pleats down. And because that will be difficult to hold in place, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm just going to put a little bit of holding tape along the top. Okay, now that tape is just simply there whilst this holds and dries. Okay, and now we're going to put another piece of tape on the top of this. Okay, and this will help hold the pleats in. Because what I don't want to do is they are jumping because they're trying to push out, but I don't want them to be pinned down forever, because I don't want it to be too flat. I want to have that nice feeling that it's jaunty and it's like a little skirt that's pulling away from the paper. So there's my line at the top, And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to bring in, do you remember the two cuffs? Here's our 5.5 by 1 and our 5.5 by 1/4. And the first thing we're going to do is put the 1/4 onto the the 1/4 onto the inch. So we're going to put this one nicely in the centre of that one. And as I say, we're not going to worry about the ends too much because it's slightly too long, so it will fit beautifully. Now we've got our piece of tape for this top now, so let's take the ticky-tacky bits off, and we're going to attach this across there. And the only thing we've got to make sure is that we keep this nice and parallel with this line here if we can. So I'm just going to give it a tiny, I think that's right, okay. And now this is where I said we've got a little bit over the end that we're going to trim. So I'm going to turn it over on the back, and I'm going to just trim all of this edge nice and neatly in line. And I'm going to do the same this time, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to, you see the edge of this pleat, where this pleat comes to, so it's this little pleat here. We're going to start here level with the end of the pleat, and we're going up like that. Okay, and the reason we did slightly too long and slightly too is because it's quite hard to get that exactly right when you're gluing, and it's much nicer to get a nice crisp end there on them all. Okay, and we're going to stick this down now onto our card. And in fact, I've gone slightly too long on it for some reason. Oh no, because I allowed for an overlap on that end. Okay, so we're now going to do a piece across the top. And we're going to do a piece roughly across the middle, which will help hold the pleats together again. And we're going to do a little piece on the very far bottom end. Okay, so top, middle, bottom, just this bit, not these pieces, because we don't want to hold those down. Okay, and we're going to take those off. 1, 2, and that one at the top. And we're going to stick this, and I'm going to do it sideways. I know this sounds mad, but I find it easier to line it up when I'm holding it sideways. I want this to be dead right on this end, and I want to make sure that I've got this straight with this top edge. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, you know I said we would have some spare, we are simply going to trim any excess we have. That's getting stuck to the scissors, there we go. And I'm going to trim any excess I've got here. Okay. And by doing all this little bit of trimming, rather than cutting it absolutely to the, what you will end up with is a beautifully squared, lovely, fixed into the shape of your card. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to just add our details. So first of all, we're going to add our little bit of text, and I've got this lovely shaded spruce, and I've got a happy birthday. But you can put whatever you like in this corner. Okay, so we have a happy birthday in the corner, and I'm going to do something which is quite brave and quite scary on camera. I am going to tie a bow. So this is going to be a double ears one. So here we go, watch carefully. We're going to make 2 loops. How you make those loops is up to you. How I make them, I'll show you, is I take my fingers, I take the 2 middle ones, and I push down, and I push up with those 2. There's one loop, there's the other loop. Now all I'm going to do is tie a knot, just like an ordinary knot, and as I tighten the bow, I'm going to allow this piece to flick over. Did you see that little end flicked over? Okay. And now I'm going to tighten the bow. Now, I'm not trying to work out how big or small I want the bow. I'm just tightening it. Once I've got the knot nice and tight, I can put my finger on the knot, and I can now pull the sides into whatever shape, size I want. Okay, and that's how I would do a nice little bow. And I might go a tiny bit smaller actually, so I'm going to keep hold of the knot to keep it nice and tight, and I'm just going to pull each of the ends till it's the shape I want. There we go. I'm going to just cut it a tiny bit shorter. Let's put a little blob of glue on the back, and I might just give it a tiny bit of glue on the pieces of the bow as well, because that way when I have it in place it's not going to jump about so much. Okay, there it goes. Just move it out till it's where I want it. Just hold it down for a few seconds, count, which allows the glue to stick. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little extra dab of glue in the middle. Even though these are sticky back, I like to put just a tiny bit of glue in there just to get them going. And there it goes. And there's one rather pretty little pleated card for you. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Bye bye for now.